Welcome to the Adventures in CRE audio series. Join Michael Belasco and Spencer Burton as they pull back the curtain on everything commercial real estate and introduce you to some of the top minds in the industry. If you want to take your skills to the next level and be part of a growing community of CRE professionals across the world, this is for you.
All right, welcome back to the Adventures in CRE audio series. This is episode 3. I'm your host, Sam Carlson, once again joined by Spencer Burton and Michael Belasco. How you doing, guys?
Yeah, doing good.
Awesome.
Very
Mike?
well.
All right, cool. So today, actually, this is kind of a fun idea. I mean, the Adventures in CRE website is all about real estate financial modeling. Yes or no?
Well, we have careers, education.
But that's the focus, right?
That was the start, and we certainly have, I would say, a plurality of content. Is
okay, cool. So I want to kind of put ourselves through the paces of where we start. So we've got a spreadsheet open. Okay, we open it up. It's brand new from the get-go.
Blank workbook, we call it.
A blank workbook. Okay, great. I want to start from the very beginning and go through the thought process, your founding principles, the fundamentals. Where is it that you guys start, and how do you kind of develop the model? Like, where does, how does it start and how does it end? I mean, Michael, maybe we'll kind of start with you here. And I know you guys, what I like about you guys, I've talked to you guys, have a lot of places within financial modeling where you're on the same page, you look at them the same way, but you also have these little things that you do a little bit different. Right,
a lot different, actually.
Yeah, I think Spencer and I open Spencer's models up sometimes to look at them,
Nice.
And I would probably say vice versa, because it's just where
styles.
We actually, I don't think we've ever really modeled together on anything.
We've tried, and it doesn't work.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting.
We tried to collaborate on a model, and it just didn't turn out.
It just peters out.
Yeah. We just have different styles, and I think that's the case. So I've seen a lot of models, hundreds of models over the years, both in what I do currently as well as in past roles, and every model is a little different. Our brains work slightly differently, and as a result, the end product is different. That's actually what's one of the things that's cool about modeling real estate in
cool.
Excel. Yeah.
So, Michael, we're starting from, what do we call it? A blank workbook?
A blank Excel workbook, right?
Okay, we're starting from a blank Excel workbook. Okay, We've got a deal in front of us. What's step one? Where do we get started? What's step one? Where do we get started? What's the mindset?
I have some general things that I do. I may switch it up. I don't exactly have a protocol. I'll pull out my, here's step one, here's step two. But one of the first things I do, and it might just be a little quirky, is I will do Control A to highlight the whole worksheet, and I will turn it all gray. So I get rid of all the lines.
What's your keyboard shortcut for that?
So it's Alt A, Control H, right arrow twice. Enter.
And so this is just like the aesthetic. This is what kind of gets the brain juices kind of moving.
I need my background gray.
Okay.
I need it gray. I don't know why. I just need it clean. I can't see the lines. And this isn't a hard rule. But okay. I generally do that. What I think I do is I like to try to get a handle on the assumptions. So, really it's that summary tab, and I will start on the summary tab, and it's all the general information that I'm thinking of, and it's not all written out clean for me. So, there's a lot of iterating and going back, but the first thing I'll do is I'll have that grayed out tab, and then I'll create a nice white box, and I'll put all I'll label it general info, and I'll, put the name of the property, address, city, state, any other types of general information that's needed. And then a lot of the salient information, like if it's a multifamily, how many units, am I going to need a toggle for, if I'm analyzing a hold period, am I going to need a toggle for that? It's really, I go all throughout the assumptions really first, and there's no particular order, I would say, in terms of how I do it, just kind of on the fly.
Well, you've done it so many times. You've done it so many times, right? Now you don't really need the step-by-step anymore.
Yeah, but in the cases, it kind of goes back and forth. I'll usually kind of stay to the summary tab, and then, I'll start there, and, there are many other tabs that'll fill out later on. Like I'll have my budget tab, I'll have my monthly cash flows, my annual cash flows, my waterfall tab, and they all sort of just organically start to kind of flow. And you kind of see the difference if you watch Spencer's and my Watch Me bills. And actually, even in the accelerator, I think you get a much better taste of how both of us model.
Yeah.
Because you kind of see us doing it much more from scratch.
Right.
It's a better taste of how both of us model.
Yeah.
Because you kind of see us doing it much more from scratch.
Right.
And so you get a lot more feel like there's certain aesthetics. But it's kind of, I don't know, Spencer, what do you, what's your flow?
Yeah. It depends on the model, obviously. I think, and if we're going to teach something here, the first step is understanding the problem you're trying to solve, right? So if you're underwriting an acquisition deal, well, you're going to be solving for an IRR, you're going to be solving for an equity multiple on an unlevered and levered basis, maybe allowed to solve for a purchase price. And so I think about that. I think about, okay, what are the outputs that I'm modeling for? And that's because that's helping me make some investment decision. And so with that in mind, then I'll open up that blank workbook. I like to have my place. I don't like grid lines, so I'll turn grid lines off. So Michael
he'll gray them out, and you'll just turn them off.
I just turn off my grid lines. I like a nice white blank.
You guys are both. You guys are similar in that way.
Well, it's funny because sometimes I'll get I'll interact with our readers via email, and they'll send one of my models back that they've been working on. They'll ask a question, and they'll have turned grid lines back on. And nothing bothers me more than a spreadsheet with grid lines, which is funny because that's
the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, what a spreadsheet is. But so I turn off of grid lines, and then I create section headings, and that helps my brain think through the process, right? So a model. And we talk about this in the accelerator a lot, but a model is a combination of assumptions, calculation modules that take those assumptions, feed into these calculation modules, and outcome on the back end, those outputs. And the outputs are what you're solving for, be it return metrics, be it risk metrics, maybe it's solving for purchase price, et cetera. So I'd like to understanding how my section headings are going to then how they're going to fit within the model, so I can then begin with assumptions. And I think I'm like Michael in that case. Once my workbook's set up in such a way that I understand how the flow is going to be, and I'm going to drop my assumptions in. And however, I don't put all of my assumptions in at once.
Yeah, no. I'm saying
it's like the primary. Oh, actually, I should step back. So I build all of my at least DCF models. Investment cash flow is one section. Operating cash flow is another section, reversion cash flow. So I'll put my assumptions for my investment cash flow section, and then I'll build out my calculation. So I'll put my assumptions for my investment cash flow section, and then I'll build out my calculation modules for that section, and then I'll move to operating cash flow.
That's right. Like I won't put the debt assumptions in until I've gone through and modeled all the way out to I have my unlevered cash flows.
Oh, really? Okay.
So,
interesting.
And this has evolved actually over time. Like I didn't always do this. So when I'm saying I'm a little bit all over the place, like I will get to analysis start date on my assumptions tab or my summary tab, and that'll say, all right, well now I'm here. I might as well go and build out my header for the monthly cash flow. So I'll go over there, and then I'll build out my months, 1 to 120, or actually, what is it? 1 to 132 if I'm going to year 11 for the reversion cash flow. And then I'll add in the dates, and then I'll add in the year and all that information. So it's kind of like once I'm putting in an assumption, what entail, like what else needs to happen from that assumption as I go deeper in the model. So once I hit analysis start date in my assumptions, then I'm moving out and I'm starting a new tab. And I almost don't want to say that's always. It's sort of it's very dorky, but it's kind of like a free flowing kind of art form. You kind of building it out. There are the essential components of a financial model that you're going to get to, right? Like, it's the inputs, it's the outputs, it's the actual mechanics behind the model, from acquisitions to operating to disposition to debt. To partnership cash flows, and you need all this information, and you kind of go along those assumptions knowing that they're all going to be built. But honestly, it can go a couple directions for me. Honestly, I hate to say there's no like one solid way that I do it every time.
Yeah.
That is interesting. So it's like anything else you do for extended periods of time. Do you find that like maybe even your accelerator members, like when they go through the accelerator, you teach them how to model, and you guys one of the cool things is you guys give them case studies to model in the accelerator, right? And I'm assuming the more they go through and actually touch those deals and do them, they'll even start to develop a level of proficiency, because like for anything to develop into an art, you just, unless you're a savant, like, Michelangelo or whatever, you don't just roll up and start painting the Sistine Chapel, right? Mm-hmm. Usually there's that fundamental level, and there's kind of like leveling up, and then you can kind of start doing some free flow like you guys do. So
let's just stop 1 second to take a moment. No, you don't have to stop the recording. Sam is calling us the Michelangelos of financial modeling here, right? Let's just soak that in.
Well, at the end of the day, because the level of sophistication and everything you guys have, the transparency you guys like actually practice. All jokes aside, you guys are walking the walk, you guys are really doing it, you're showing either, whether it's through the blog or more so through the accelerator, the transparency, the level of transparency. You have an expert level understanding of this.
Yeah. There's a lot of great real estate financial modelers out there. Michael and I aren't, the only ones, but we have made the choice to share what we do. So it's out there. I think what's important here is, there's fundamentals. Mm-hmm. So you have to understand how to get your DCF right, from your investment cash flows through your operating cash flows through your reversion cash flows, layering, and get to an unlevered and levered property level cash flow line. And you can calculate your metrics off that. And then from those flow into your partnership level cash flows, your waterfall, right? So there's those fundamentals that everyone has to do. But what happens is once you get that down, then we're all a little different. Our brains work differently. Right now, I'm really into single worksheet models. This is
this was an interesting discussion between the two of you guys today.
Michael and I just view this differently. I like single tab. I want all of my assumptions on one tab. That works well with how my brain works. For him, he prefers, I don't want to speak for you, but to silo out the different sections into different tabs. And by the way, that's more industry standard than my latest kick on single tab models. But because we have the fundamentals down, then now we can start exploring. And this is sounding cheesy, but it's really fun. Like when you're into this, like it's really fun. I could sit down on a weekend and just build a model, and that would be more fun to me than watching the Super Bowl.
And if you're listening and you're out there, and you align with our thinking in terms of your passion, your passion for real estate financial modeling, you're in a good position, because a lot of people can't wait to get out of it. A lot of people want to get the job. They want to, they prove their worth. They get good at financial modeling, and they want to get promoted, and they don't ever want to look at a real estate financial model again. Like, I can't tell you, everybody that I worked with, they were more than happy to just pass off the Excel models to me, because, they are sharp. They absolutely understand everything. But they don't have the passion for building it out. Right. So, it gives you that value add, because you're someone on the team that can help with others, with new people coming on, and you kind of get that role. And as you move up in your career, you are always staying fresh and you understand where your people who are working for you are coming from, and you can kind of help guide. Where you get 20 years in your career and you haven't looked at Excel and how to build a model in 15 years maybe.
Right.
Then
so there's I know there's definitely personality types that are going to gravitate towards liking that analysis and that getting there's people that love to they call them gearheads that love to get down in motors and things like that. I don't know what we call an Excel head, but I'm not sure if there's a name for that. But when you look at these people that are proficient in reading a model, okay, and understanding what it means, that's one level of understanding that you really need to have, okay, and understanding what it means, that's one level of understanding that you really need to have. But do you think that people don't really like the model, like actually building the model side of it, because either they don't like it just because it's not their personality, or maybe they just don't understand the fundamental aspects of it well enough? Is there some of that there, or is it just they don't like it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of both. When you're frustrated with something, then
by the way, we've seen you build models, and we've seen you in Excel. And like all of the the shortcuts and everything, you're just clicking away like at 1,000,000 miles an hour. So, I mean, obviously that comes.
I enjoy it. Yeah. I made a concerted effort to learn it, and so and that's because I enjoy it. No, so to your question about like why is it? Oh, I want to get out of Excel as soon as possible. Yeah, I think just some people don't want to be in Excel. It's not their thing. However, when you meet someone like Michael and I, it's very clear, like it's really fun to be in Excel. And in fact, one of the reasons I blog is because I'm senior enough now in my career that I don't get to be in Excel as much as maybe I would like to be. Of course, I'm doing other things that are probably more valuable, and
like high level.
And I still really enjoy that as well. I wish I could do both. And so the blog is a great outlet for me to, continue to be in Excel and to teach it and to build models and all that. But,
cool.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. There is a lot to do, whether it's acquisitions, development, there's tons of work to do.
Sure.
And, as you move up, the good thing is, my experience in development is in my position, I can revisit the one I've built. So, for what happens is you kind of spend less time on it, but you are kind of like the go-to guy. So when there is the opportunity to go back into it, I never mind hopping back in and making updates and stuff like that. But the reality is, there is a big team, and you're out there looking at deals, you're out there networking, you're out there establishing relationships. And these are valuable things to be doing, and stuff that's needed to be done as well. So you need the team, and the idea is that, analysts, associates, they're primarily the guys financial modeling. But if you are in a smaller shop, and maybe you're, starting off on your own, you're jack of all trades. So it's very valuable to understand this all the way through, and especially if you're not a large institutional shop like Spencer is, or I formerly was.
Yeah. So one thing, and so I'm going to coin a phrase right now. Maybe you guys will think it's awesome. Maybe you think it's not great. But one of the things you guys both started out was a very small task to get you moving. I'm going to call this modeling momentum. Okay.
I like it.
And a lot of us, whenever we have a task, whenever we have something we're doing, man, I don't know what it is. Like if you like going back to the gym, like going back and working out or doing a diet, those first couple of steps are the hardest. But then after that, you get that momentum, right? So you guys both, what I find interesting is you both used a form of modeling momentum just to kind of get the juices flowing and to get things moving. So I think for me, a big takeaway here is if you haven't even really gotten into modeling that much, or you don't feel proficient at it, the best place to get started is just to actually get started. Pick a small step, that whether it's graying out the screen or removing the grid lines, starting with your assumptions, whatever it is, just kind of pick some things that you can get moved. Starting with your assumptions, whatever it is, just kind of pick some things that you can get moving with. Right.
Yeah.
And that momentum will kind of like propel you to the next step. Okay. So we've got the beginning of our model. Okay. how shall we proceed? I mean, as we're developing it, what are the iterations that we kind of go through until we say, hey, I'm happy with what I'm looking at? What does that look like?
Yeah. So for me, I'll finish my kind of first draft of the model. And if you follow the website, you know that at that point I share the model, but it's not done yet. And in the more complex models, I call it beta because at this stage, there's still 100,000 plus formulas, and there are going to be errors, right?
Well, and I was just going to say, in your all-in-one model, which is that your guys' most popular model?
It's the most downloaded.
Okay.
Yeah.
That one, how many iterations more? You probably don't even remember.
Simpler model. And then over time, either through feedback from the community or just, I'll finish a model, I'll release it because it's production ready, but maybe I want to add a detailed operating expense module, or maybe I want to add a double promote module, or maybe I want to add a ground lease module, right? There's all these things that I'd like to add that aren't essential to getting to those kind of core outputs that I want: IRR, equity multiple, and some of my risk metrics, debt coverage and debt yield, right? And so I'll release that first phase, and then just over time, iterate, add it, improve on it, things I want to do, and at some point it will be done. Hopefully, of course, we have 50 some odd models on the website, and we continue to update them. We continue to update them as we get feedback from people, and some of that's my preferences change. So I look at models that I built 5-6 years ago, and I'm like, I don't really like how this is done, and I'll change it, and then I'll release an update to it.
Mm-hmm.
Michael?
There are some models on the site now that I put out personally in 2015 or something. And I have yet to go back to an update. I look at them, I've seen them, and with just our schedules being so busy, I look at them like, oh man, I really need to get to this. I really need to update this one. And they're functional, right? They work. But we've just, there's been just such an evolution of how, I personally model that, I will get back there. But one of the things that encourages these updates are people contact us with requests for updates. And if it's a valuable contribution, like my condominium development model, for example, I had 3 years initially. Hold periods, we want to be able to analyze this on a 5-year hold. So, that's not a major thing to update, but that's sort of the kind of feedback that we're getting. Or my hotel model, for example, somebody wanted to, look at, a project improvement plan or property improvement plan. And they wanted that added in because that's a major impact on the acquisition, the value of the building when you're acquiring it. So, those are valuable adds that kind of inspire me to say, okay, I need to get back in and update the model.
Or errors.
Right? Errors, yes.
And by the way, every model is going to have them. And if you imagine that your first iteration of a model doesn't have any errors, then either it just isn't the case, right? Software gets released, it's going to have errors. Now, I think we've gotten better over the years that we can cache those, and I use error check for the years that we can cache those, and I use error checking practices that usually help catch the bigger errors. But that happens. Small things, not really big things, but small things need to be fixed, and that's just the nature of this.
Yeah. So one thing, I might be changing topics a little bit here, but it kind of runs into this sort of error checking, is that the more you practice this, and if you are somebody who becomes more senior and you always stay in touch with financial modeling, you could be negotiating partnership structures. And I can't divulge details, but I'm on a consulting job right now for somebody who has different contribution dates for different people. And there are consequences and impacts to the IRR and different people's profits, and how you're basically calculating all these things. That time is an impact. What I'm trying to say is that because if you are one who nerds out a lot on that it might be a disadvantage to one of the partners who may not understand that or capture that, and they may never realize what's actually happening behind the scenes. But if you are proficient enough and you really understand how the Excel model is working, you can pick up on that stuff. And so it's starting to play out in my professional life just because I've spent so much time on it. I kind of capture, all right, well, something's off here because, for example, people aren't investing at the same time, but you put that in a traditional waterfall model and you're not thinking about it or sophisticated enough to really kind of go through that process. You're never going to catch that unless you're really been working on it for a long time. These models and concepts. So that's just one kind of caveat to sort of add to when you find errors or maybe you miss something or there's things to add. Just over and over, the iteration is really where you kind of get savvy with this kind of stuff.
So if you're doing your own models, okay. So for the blog, just put it out. If you're doing your own models, okay. So for the blog, just put it out, and there's going to be some errors, and you have kind of like an internal checklist of things that are big, like you don't want to miss them. Mm-hmm. If you're modeling your own deal, when do you kind of say, "Hey, that's my first iteration. That's good enough"? Like, how do you know when you're done? I guess.
Well, I think that's why templates are so prevalent in the industry, right? So if you were to model every deal that you're considering, maybe you're at an acquisition shop and you modeled every deal from scratch, every one of your models are going to have errors. Versus if you've built out an in-house template. Right. It's gone through iterations. It's gone through air checks, auditing, and et cetera. You have some level of confidence that it's free of errors or fits the great majority of the type of deals that you're going to be underwriting on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, I mean, that's really the answer is, you get better at it. You get better at catching the errors and you get better at modeling so that you don't have errors. But even so, even better is create your own templates that you can use that you've already gone through the process of ensuring that they're free of errors.
Right. Anything you want to add to that before we close up here?
No, I think I agree with Spencer on that. And you're always going to have deals that there will be some nuance, but if you start from a strong template with a strong base,
then... and it's because those have at least the proven fundamentals, like the core of your deal, right? It might exclude some of the weeds,
exactly,
but it's going to include the core.
That's the most right. It's been vetted.
Core.
That's the most right. It's the core, but it's been vetted enough. In deals I'm looking at where I'm. What I will do is if I have opportunities I'm looking at, I want to share with potential capital partners, something like that, or it's sort of, a last minute thing, I will send something out and say, this is very much a work in progress. I'm sending you this now. And maybe you might do it differently, Spencer. And I'm still fine tuning this. Like I may send something out that has no debt assumptions, just all unlevered, right? Just so you can kind of get a feel for what the asset is along with other information. If I'm building something from scratch because the deal is very nuanced, right? But that will then go through a ton of iterations up until the point where now that is a template in my sort of tool chest, so to speak, that I will be now using, for going forward.
Got it. Awesome. Well, episode 3 is in the books. You guys, thank you so much. I think my big takeaway here is just get some way. You guys, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Adventures in CRE audio series. For show notes and additional resources, head over to www.adventuresincre.com/audio series. Would you like to learn real estate financial modeling in a matter of weeks and do it with zero guesswork? If so, the A.CRE Accelerator is for you. The Accelerator is a step-by-step, case-based program designed to teach you exactly what you need to know and in the order you need to know it, so you can gain both the knowledge and experience to take your career to the next level. To see if the Accelerator is right for you, go to www.adventuresincre.com/accelerator.